Welcome to the premiere of the new video podcast format of our popular Hot Topic series in the new Fabre Framework Studio, bringing vital insights directly to realtors. In this critical and timely session, Real Estate Fraud, Protecting Yourself and Your Buyer, we tackle the escalating issue of fraud in real estate transactions and discover practical strategies and expert tips to safeguard your business and protect your clients from emerging threats. I want you to get ready for an electric conversation with two dynamic experts who will equip you with the tools you need to detect and prevent real estate fraud. Barbara Brown. Barbara is a powerhouse attorney at Brown & Kipton with decades of frontline experience, renowned for her razor-sharp legal acumen. Barbara has successfully navigated countless complex real estate transactions and fraud prevention cases. Her deep understanding of title law and her commitment to protecting her clients make her a formidable advocate in the battle against fraud. Expect Barbara to deliver no-nonsense, actionable advice that will immediately elevate your personal vigilance. And we have Jenny Restrepo. Jenny, the dynamic Director of Marketing and Business Development at Insured Title Agency. She is known for her relentless energy and digital marketing brilliance, with a proven track record in creating cutting-edge digital strategies. Jenny has mastered the art of communication across social media, podcast, video, and digital advertising. Her engaging approach and sharp insights will arm you with innovative tactics to recognize, respond, and communicate effectively about real estate fraud. Jenny's unique perspective will ignite your proactive defenses against fraud threats. Thank you.
Thank you for having. Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction.
My pleasure.
Hopefully we deliver on being electrifying.
I know you both will.
And igniting.
Yes.
So, yes, thank you for that wonderful introduction.
My pleasure. We'll go straight to the panel questions. First question is going to be what immediate steps should realtors take if they suspect fraud is occurring during a transaction?
Stop in your tracks and get your title representative on the phone. Because if you you may not know that there's fraud, but we all have spidey senses, or you feel a red flag. And I encourage every realtor, if you think something is going on, if the spidey sense kicks up, say it out loud, get your title professional involved, share what you know or what you're feeling, because together, collectively, hopefully, if fraud is involved, we stop it in its tracks before it gets to closing and beyond, because that's where the real problems start.
I would agree with that, and I would say it's not only buyer's side, but seller's side. It is what's going on in your stomach that says, wait, this doesn't sound right. There's either an urgency, seller wants to close ASAP, and therefore you should be reaching out to maybe the buyer's agent to say, I don't know, or now they're not communicating with you other than email. That's a huge one also. So when the red flags go up or the spidey senses kick in, get your team together and make it a collective action, because people might be hearing something on the other side. And when you start putting those puzzle pieces together, all of a sudden the puzzle becomes fraud.
Good. That makes me think. So, what's the most outrageous fraud case you've encountered in your career, and how did you manage it?
How much time do you have?
I know.
We got time. We got time.
Are you serious? Who wants to? You can go
Go
first.
ahead.
Okay. Well, Michael Bogstad is probably the wildest story that we have, where he came in, first of all, as a real estate broker himself, came in to sell off-market properties to an investor client that works with our title company. And he had multiple properties. So we agreed to, let's close on this one, and then we'll get the other ones teed up. And in the course of this transaction, Leslie on our team, her spidey senses started kicking up and she realized that something wasn't right. Digging into the file further on all of these, it turns out every single one of them, he had executed a fraudulent deed, electronically recorded, so you don't actually have to be a person that goes to the courthouse. And it started with the seller misspelled her own name in her signature, and as it turns out, also signed that after her death. So I can go into an extreme amount of detail on this file, or you can just Google it, because after 5 years of investigations, the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department did arrest him. He did plead guilty in the end, but he will not be receiving any jail time for those crimes because we actually stopped those in their tracks. They did not go to closing, so he had to pay restitution for a loan that he was able to close and take out on one of these fraudulent properties. But not only did he record fake deeds, he recorded fake satisfactions of mortgages and transfer of mortgages from the true mortgage company to a shell company that he had created. So should we have closed those properties, he would have not only gotten the money from the sale of the purchase, but also the payoff. And there still would have been a mortgage lien against the property because the true and rightful mortgagee was not satisfied. So in that situation, and as I mentioned, he was a real estate broker himself. He is no longer. That license was revoked.
As it should have been.
Yeah.
Has he stopped his criming? I do not know.
Wow, Barbara, that's gonna be tough to follow up with that one.
I agree. That is tough. So I guess reality is there is still fraud going on different levels, whether it's that high level or what comes to mind maybe is not the most outrageous, but one of the events that's happening right now are people are going to Sunbiz because it's very easy to change information on Sunbiz, and they're changing the ownership of a property that's unencumbered or has significant equity in it. And we caught one of those at Brown and Kempton. We had a property over in Orlando that was selling, and we double-checked Sunbiz, and within just the last couple of weeks of closing, right before closing, the owner went from a gentleman in Orlando to a gentleman in Miami. We picked up the phone and called the attorney that had drafted and opened the register, who was in essence the registered agent of the company, called him and said, "Hey, is your seller actually selling?" And he said, no. So the other thing that we're seeing right now is the payoff letters. Out of nowhere, our title team will get a updated payoff letter from Chase Bank or any other lender, not choosing Chase, but any lender whatsoever, that we have not in fact ordered. And what is happening is they are following the email train or scheme, and they are sending updated payoff letters and changing the account and the routing number. So when the title company goes to pay off the loan, they aren't choosing the right entity to pay it off to, and instead they're paying off the fraudster. So there are things that you can put in place, which is any payoff letters, you always double check them. So there are outrageous schemes, but there are daily schemes also that we are seeing.
Title companies are the biggest target of these fraudsters in many situations because maybe there's a perception that a title company is a business. The business has some sort of business insurance, and getting a property where someone is living in it and then involving buyers that are unsuspecting, they go after the electronic crime.
they try to say it's a victimless crime,
And,
but it's not.
and it's not a victimless crime, because if you're a small business owner, like Insured Title Agency is a small business here in the community. We are locally owned and operated. We do not have a national arm behind us that can take a hit if someone comes after our escrow account or targets our emails. That is something that could potentially put us out of business if anything like that went through. So it's not a victimless crime. It's just a different version of, we're all under attack, it seems, at every angle. And so true due diligence is needed in every aspect, every player involved doing the most to try to protect yourselves. And the owner of Insured Title Agency has told me every single day, they even went old school and were trying to steal checks out of the mailbox and wash checks. So nothing is considered safe or off limits in a digital age, where in the state of Florida, information is managed by our Sunshine State laws and is free and open to the public.
You kind of brought up, Barbara, some of the sunbiz, the online tricks. What are some of those common online traps targeting realtors right now? And what's the craziest attempt you've seen?
Oh, there are honestly, there are ones that happen daily, but the ones we've seen are the ones in which they are changing sunbiz and changing the ownership, which if you're savvy enough, you can pick up on that. I mean, obviously a company owner going from Orlando to Miami is significant. But because of all the deep fake now, you've got, we just had a call the other day where a gentleman bought a vacant property, had realtors on both sides, and he paid cash, used a title company. It was not our title company. He contacted us on the legal side of the business, and the entire transaction is, on the seller side, fake. The selling agent was fake. The sellers were fake. The driver's license, everything about the transaction was fake. And that's where, when we started this conversation, it's putting that team together and working with that team. Seller's agents, buyer's agent, mortgage broker, your title company. And so if anybody has that gut moment where they go, this just doesn't seem right, then that's when you get with your team and say, wait, hold on, let's put the brakes on this and let's just do a little due diligence. And that due diligence for a day or two can go so far into the transaction.
Like it.
The level of audacity is so high because, as I mentioned, Matt Cox was probably the most prolific title thief back in the early 2000s. And I can say that because he was arrested and prosecuted by the Secret Service for his crimes, and he speaks about it to this day himself, so I'm not telling any secrets. But back in the early 2000s, you need a person, a warm body, but in the electronic age, this wasn't with either of us, but I saw a video where someone was trying to use an AI video to represent that I'm a real person, and it just was not, they were not buying it and clearly didn't close that transaction. But I have fielded calls from real estate agents who have listed properties fraudulently, and I've gotten feedback that, well, isn't that title's job? And in fact, as Barbara mentioned, we're all in this together, so it's all of our jobs to do our best to try to sort out any fraud if there is fraud involved from the beginning. Because if you do not have the true and rightful seller, you do not have a valid listing agreement. If you do not have a valid listing agreement, how much time and effort are you putting into listing this property, getting February frameworks to come out and take pictures potentially, and then what? Then you find out, nobody wants to find out a surprise at the closing table. Nobody wants to find out at the last minute that we don't have all the right players in place. And they are very smart. So it does require getting everybody in the team involved, but starting from the listing agreement is, let's make sure we've got the right people.
It's from the listing appointment. I mean, if you can't meet with the person whether it's on the phone or face-to-face or Zoom or Team. I mean, technology gives us so many different opportunities to meet with the seller. But if everything is via email, that's a red flag right there. If they can't communicate with you, exactly. If they can't communicate with you and you can't put a face with the name, then that's a red flag. And again, if there's a urgency or they're selling for some reason at a ridiculous amount below market price, these are red flags that I realize in this market right now. We want closings. We want sales. But if you see those red flags, you need to speak up and say, I don't think I can assist you in this transaction. Now, the next step is they're going to go find someone who is going to, and hopefully people listen to this podcast and they find out that these red flags could save so many of these transactions. Did you know 2024, it was 16.6 billion.
With a B.
With a B. Let's set that in. 16 billion in cyber fraud involving real estate.
Wow.
16 billion. And that's only what has been reported, turned in. Right. There are transactions that because they did not close actually don't arise to the level of a cyber crime, because while there was impersonation or something else, the crime never happened. There was no transfer of money. Nothing was stolen. They were caught. But 16 billion with a B in cyber crime involving real estate.
I do have a happy story on this topic.
Yay, good.
A win for us all, which was I had a real estate agent call me regarding taking a vacant land listing. And so let's just say that vacant land is what they're going after first and foremost, especially vacant land owned by, it's unencumbered and owned by an out-of-state owner. This is a big starting off point for a lot of these fraudulent transactions because, yes, as Barbara said, there's not a building that you have to gain entry to. There are not people or renters living on the property. And so the criminals are looking at that as the easiest entry point to getting started. Well, this agent works for a broker who has required a higher level of due diligence in taking vacant land listings because of the awareness of the fraud, and she was following all of his steps exactly. This person provided her with a passport, texted her. So, hi, we can Photoshop, we can Canva. You don't even have to be that good at it anymore. So she had a passport with a picture with the correct name that matched the rightful owner and public record, but her spidey senses were kicking up, so she asked for our help. Can you make sure that I'm getting the right person? Because I don't want to go down this road. So I said, okay, give me the phone number that you've been interacting with. And there is an app that's available through Florida Realtors where we can put the phone number in and see what comes up. Oftentimes, if you put that number in and it comes up blank, it's potentially a burner. Not always, but maybe. You can also reverse look up, so we can put the name of the rightful owner and the location of the property. And so what I did is I went to the office. I called from the insured title agency office business phone and called a phone number that was associated with the true and rightful owner. Got her on the phone. She did not contact any real estate agents about listing her property. So that was step number one. Then she said, but I did speak to my husband this morning about selling that land. So this agent ended up getting the listing after all, but with the correct and rightful sellers, who were very grateful to know that their property was protected. And then I can tell you step number 2 that I shared with them and everyone is also getting yourself registered with free property fraud alert. So should anything ever be recorded that is fraudulent, you get a notification immediately.
I'm just glad that ended with a happy
But
ending.
it did. So happy ending for the consumer, happy ending for the realtor actually earning the listing.
Right.
And now we have a transaction that's moving forward with the correct people in place.
Perfect. This time we're going to take a little quick break. We'll come back. We are back. So you touched on a lot, Jenny, regarding time of the realtor. They lose when they're dealing with a fraud transaction. But I want to now transition to, how does real estate fraud impact realtors legally? And what are the best practices to limit that liability?
How it impacts them legally is it could impact their license. And depending on what type of insurance they're carrying, it could go directly against their errors and omissions insurance. How they protect themselves is creating checklists. I mean, there's a great vacant land checklist that is out on the fund's website. That is a great one to use. But creating checklists so that you know you have done everything potentially possible. Jenny was talking about the ID. The ID that was used in her situation was a passport. Well, let's back up and make sure, again, Canva, different AI tools can create a passport. But if you've never met the person and all they're showing you is a passport, that should be a red flag. So putting things in place that protect you so that if you do have to go into court and defend yourself, you can show that you took every possible step to, in fact, protect the transaction, protect your client.
Good. So you talk about that checklist. What are some top red flags realtors should be watching out for to spot a scam before it happens?
I think your top red flags are a seller's urgency, below market price, unable to communicate other than via email. I think those are your top red flags. When it comes to the property, so transitioning away from the person, but when you look at the property, unencumbered property, vacant land property, rental property that is owned by someone out of state or even out of country. Those are your red flags when it comes down to the actual property itself. Because you can't go and knock on the door and say, are you the owner of the property? Because it's either vacant or truly a lot, or the person's out of state. We had a situation, and it was with one of our hard money lenders, because that's one of the services we do, a lot of closings with hard money lenders. It was a multi-million-dollar transaction. Our hard money lender had wired in over $800,000 for the transaction. And it just so happened that the seller had put on Facebook that she was going to be in Europe for a couple of months. And the selling agent was fake. The seller was fake. The buyer happened to go do their walkthrough the morning of closing on their way to the fake title company. And the seller had just come home from her vacation. They go knock, knock. She opens the door. They say, we're here to do our walkthrough. We're closing. So nice to finally meet you. And she says, I don't know who you are. I'm not selling my property.
Wow.
But every part of the transaction was fake, from the seller to the seller's agent to the title company. So that's where I'm saying, do that gut check. You know, and the buyer's agent could have been on the hook there. But every other party, the only people that were true on the deal were the title, or the broker, the lender, the buyer, and the buyer's agent. Those were the only true parties in the transaction. Everybody else was fake. It's crazy.
Yeah, it really is.
Let's see. I would say One of the big things for realtors to be aware of is if you get a call out of nowhere. Now, I want to commend all of you for having Google business listings, excellent social media presences, wonderful websites, great pictures of yourself. But if somebody calls you and says, or texts you, or WhatsApps you, nothing against WhatsApp specifically, unfortunately, criminals enjoy to use it, and says, I found your profile online. You seem like such an amazing agent, and I can't wait to list my waterfront property hundreds of thousands of dollars under market value with you. I know we're excited about this listing, and you're seeing that potential commission. However, the red flag on this is about the size of the one at One Buck Plaza. And so this is a time where you need to go ahead and call a title agent. If you don't have one saved in your phone, you have Insured Title Agency or Brown and Kimpton to choose from as of today. But do not go this alone. Get us involved at Insured Title Agency. We do your title work for you at listing. We do not wait for you to find a buyer, go under contract, and then find out a bunch of mess. So we try to get on top of that as quickly as possible so that we're working ahead for you so we can mitigate the potential of any surprises that could derail your closing.
Gotcha. So if it sounds like a dream or fairy tale, it most likely is.
Some of y'all been married a long time and you haven't been out in the dating scene. If it sounds bad, it's bad. This is me. I had to make this. Title fraud is not fun, so we got to add a little bit of candor.
Yeah, if you're looking for the sale in all the wrong places, kind of like love,
Yes.
you're looking for love in all the wrong places, then you know what? You know what you're going to find.
Right, yeah.
So.
Goodness. Let's talk about for the buyers for a second.
Mm-hmm.
What's the most effective way for realtors to educate their buyers on fraud prevention without scaring them away? Yeah, you know, because too much information scares them. So what do they do?
So now I'm going to lean into the fact that I am a mom, and when you are working with your buyers, not that their intelligence level is a level of children, but just as you tell your kids something over and over and over again, and you don't really second guess whether you shouldn't have said it one more time, look at that situation with your buyers in the same exact way. I would rather have told you 10 times or maybe 11 times than that one time that wasn't enough and now something bad happens. And so, I mean, Barbara mentioned being prepared, having a checklist. Maybe have a fraud prevention checklist for your buyers that you give them. Because once you're under contract, now that's when the buyer's really getting opened up to this, because before then, you've been showing them houses. They haven't really put anything on paper. They haven't brought an escrow deposit or put any money, though they've obtained a pre-approval letter. But once that buyer goes under contract, now they're getting financially involved in this transaction. Now money is changing hands. And then that's when the danger starts for them, because now they're emailing and their email is involved in this transaction. So we can't possibly figure out all of the ways with using AI, with using deepfakes, that these criminals, the links that they're willing to go to, because for them, it doesn't matter. I'm sitting at home and I'm a warrior on my keyboard, and if I can get your money, I'm going to get it. So the biggest thing with your buyer is tell them over and over and over again, you as a realtor will never give them wiring instructions. Never, ever, never, ever, 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 ever. Okay? So if you get them from me, what looks like me, it's not me. Another thing is the title company will not change banks in the middle of a transaction with you. So if when you made your escrow deposit, you went to XYZ Bank, you are not wiring your closing funds to ABC Bank. That's a big one, because it's not just this title fraud, but wire fraud, and getting your buyer's funds to close or getting those funds from the title company that pay off the mortgage. That's the bag of money that they're looking for. And that is the area of vulnerability, because it's the consumer that goes to the bank with the wiring instructions that initiates that wire transfer of a significant amount of funds. And so we have a practice and we tell them over and over and over again. When you are standing in the bank with the teller there in front of you, call us on the phone, old school, to the phone number that you've been interacting with the entire time in this transaction. Speak to the person who you've been speaking this whole time, whose voice sounds the same, and read those numbers off one by one on the phone, on speaker with the teller to verify that your money is going to the correct place. And then get a receipt that the money's been received at the correct place as soon as possible, because you can call a wire back. But we had a situation where I heard this man say, oh, I just realized 2 weeks later, I didn't get my money from that transaction. $500,000. I'm sorry, what happened? I'm not that casual with $500,000, so I'm I'm updating my app to make sure the money hits my account. But yeah, $500,000, it's gone.
I think to answer your question, working with a professional title company, law firm that has invested in the systems, and when the buyer says, do I really have to fill out this online encrypted form? The agent should be saying, yes, because it's for your benefit. We don't allow a buyer to use their own notary because the notaries have turned out to be fraudulent. So we say we have a notary service that is also licensed and bonded. It isn't next door neighbor that has her notary stamp, but it is somebody that we know we can rely on. So when you're talking about how to protect your buyer, one thing is to say, I work with a professional title company like Insured Title or law firm that like Brown and Kempton that has and pays for certain systems in place to protect the buyers and the sellers. And that is encryptiveware. That is one of the things with us. They can't pull back a wire. When we get a wire in, it comes into a wire account and then is automatically swept into another account. That account number is nowhere out in the universe. Unlike wire instructions that get passed on years ago, here, let me just email you my wire instructions. Well, those wire instructions might be out there, but that account has a zero balance in it at all times. So wires can never be pulled back by a potential fraudulent buyer, which is one of the frauds. They send in the wire, then they go to the bank and say, oh, I made a mistake, pull that wire back. The bank pulls that wire back. Meanwhile, the title company has issued out the funds to everybody. And now they're out the money. So there's fraud on so many different levels. But as much as there is fraudsters creating those new schemes, there are programs and companies that are putting things in place that can combat them. But many times we get pushback from the real estate agents that say, oh, my client wants to bring in a starter check. Yes, we've had that. My client wants to bring in a check written off. They just opened this account and they want to bring you a check. We go back and forth whether we're going to accept cashier's checks because there was so much fraud there. Fraud now in wire transfers. Every level. So when we say this is the way we do it, and unfortunately we don't make any exceptions, not even for my mom. I mean, if we're doing a transaction, even for a family member. But we have these things in place. So work with your team, know what their procedures are, ask up front, what's my buyer going to expect? Are they going to expect encrypted emails? Are they going to have to sign on to a web portal in order to get something from you? But it's all protection. It's hard out there. It's really hard.
I want to concur with Barbara that if you're dealing with a reputable establishment and they have extra levels of security and protection designed to try to better ensure your overall transaction. You would rather spend that time either educating your client, helping them use these systems, and aligning yourself with how to work with them, than be sitting on a witness stand and giving testimony as to why you did not do that or why something bad happened.
Agreed.
With so many ways the real estate fraud could happen, you both talked about processes. From your experience, what safeguards or practices would you like to see standardized across the industry to better protect agents and consumers?
Well, I think with the fraud involved with Sunbiz, something needs to change there. It is very easy to change the ownership records. There's even a company who will walk the amendment across the street, and it can be done within a couple of hours.
Wow.
So, Jenny referenced our Sunshine State and the fact that we are open in many respects. So those are things I would like to see changed. I know from the recorder's office that they are putting some things in place. I think Lee County came out with the first beta testing to check on title. But even there, the problem is that is after the fact. Someone has already sent in a deed and the county is catching a fraudulent deed, but now you have to undo the fraud. So until we can get ahead of the fraudsters, I don't know how many agencies, etc., unless we are all doing our own due diligence, how much we can rely on other agencies.
I agree that this is part of the advocacy that we do with Florida Realtors and our local Realtor Association, where we go to Tallahassee and we talk to the lawmakers, because what we noticed with the Michael Bogstead case is that law enforcement can only enforce the laws that are on the books. And as far as I'm aware, and Barbara's attorney and could correct me, but title theft is not a crime that you can be arrested for. So Michael Bogstead was charged with intent to defraud. Oh. And so we're actually now putting the onus on our law enforcement officers, our state's attorneys, to work within the laws that are on the books to figure out what was the crime. And then, as we mentioned, if it didn't go as far as actually closing and money changing hands, was there a crime? If you attempt to steal my car, but you don't get to steal my car, didn't you still do a crime? So these are the situations where we can be better partnering with our lawmakers and adding more information, making it clear for law enforcement what the aspects of this crime are, and then setting precedent for punishing these criminals, because that's another aspect to seeing it all the way through. Is now we're figuring out what the crime is. So once we decide on what the crime is, what is the punishment? There's not precedent for attorneys and judges to follow. So we're playing a lot of catch up with this. But as Barbara mentioned, I think it is on the radar of our lawmakers, and certain counties are adding things in place. And truly, the Sunshine Laws were great when they were initiated because it creates transparency. However, in the digital age, it's being exploited, and it's being exploited against the people who are allowing their information to be available. So there has to be a way to maybe navigate that a little bit better in still having transparency in some things, but protecting our consumers a little bit better, that their information is not so easily exploitable in an anonymous way.
Makes sense. So tell me, what's one common myth about real estate fraud that you each wish would just disappear?
That real estate fraud only happens to the inexperienced. That it only happens to the inexperienced buyer or real estate agent, seller. That's not the case. It can happen from the $50,000 vacant lot with a very experienced, savvy buyer, seller, or as I talked about, the multi-million-dollar property where everybody was very seasoned and experienced. So I think the myth that I hear is this only happens to inexperienced parties. The opposite is, I think it happens to the uneducated, and I'm not talking about, your degree education, but if you are going out and taking courses on different fraudulent activities or how to protect your seller, buyer, or listening to this podcast, you are doing something to better educate yourself as to and help that gut check. Wait, hey, I have a Canadian seller of a vacant lot that's unencumbered. I think Jenny and Barbara were just talking about this on a podcast. This is maybe a red flag. Let's investigate this more closely. So I think it's the more you educate yourself, the more you're going to know and potentially see a red flag that you might not have seen. So the myth is unexperienced people. No, this happens to everybody, every level.
The myth that I can add to that is that there's a checks and balances in place that wouldn't allow this to happen to you. First of all, when you record something with the county clerk office, no one is making sure that you did it right. So as long as you are recording a properly formatted document and you're paying your doc stamps or your recording fees, no one is double checking that it is correct. No one is checking IDs. You don't see photocopies of IDs with electronic filings. So the myth is, oh, if something was done wrong, someone is paying attention to that. That is not the case. So that is definitely a myth. And then the other one would be, but if something bad happens to me while I own this home, that's what I have title insurance for. And in fact, title insurance is the only insurance that protects you from the time that you own it into the past, not during the time that you own it. So the kind of title theft that we're talking about here, well, we've talked about all of them, but for example, you live in your house or you own this property, maybe you don't live in it, or you own this land, and somebody records a fraudulent deed transferring ownership and then attempts to sell it to an unsuspecting third party, your title insurance policy does not protect you from that activity because your title insurance policy only insures the past. And then, as we kind of discussed before the show started, additionally, if fraud was used in the transaction in the past, your title policy may not cover that either, because if the people committed fraud, not just that there was an error. So the best thing is to remain vigilant in your own efforts and, as Barbara said, to educate yourself. And that is the reason that we go on podcasts like this. We go on the news. We want the community to know, yes, this is happening, and then here are the ways to protect yourself. Just think of identity fraud. When identity fraud first started happening, people were like, no one can be me because I'm me. Lo and behold, yes, they can, and they can be really smart at it. So now we're all aware of identity theft, protecting your social security number, not giving out your credit, all that. So we need to raise the awareness of title fraud, real estate fraud to that level of understanding that people now have regarding things like identity fraud.
Perfect. On that note, we're going to take a break. We are back. And now I have a great question I thought of. All right. This is really going to be for you, Barbara.
Yay.
It's not only hot topics, it's the
The
hot seat.
Don't worry. Hot seat's coming. The hot seat's coming later. When fraud happens, where does the liability usually fall? The realtor, the title company, the buyer, and what will actually surprise the people listening?
The answer is it depends. It truly depends. It depends on what the fraud was that was committed and by whom. So while we were on break, I talked about a mortgage. It was mortgage fraud. But the title company was not aware or did not catch that a the signer on the mortgage was the secretary treasurer of the company. It was a corporation, and under Florida statute, a secretary and or a treasurer cannot bind a mortgage to a property. But yet the mortgages went on multiple properties, about $500,000. When the company did not make the payment, foreclosure happened. Well, because the mortgages were not actually properly executed by somebody who could bind the mortgages, litigation ensued. So in that case, you could look to the mortgage broker, you could look to the title company. So that's where I go back to, it really depends. In that situation, we did have an absentee secretary or absentee vice president and president. They, husband and wife, lived out of the country, had a manager of their property who, for ease of deposits of checks and rental checks, they put him as the secretary and the treasurer. All the properties were unencumbered, and he went and took out all these mortgages on the property. So it depends. I know it's probably not the answer that people want to hear.
Right.
You know, you want a definitive answer. Well, every transaction is going to be different. So it depends on who caused or did not do their due diligence.
I think the biggest surprise is that there is not a step 1, 2, 3 to unwinding the fraud. For example, I said, if someone tries to steal your car or they do steal your car, you call the police. The police apprehend the criminal is charged. There's a standard process that follows for crimes like that. But the crime of title theft or real estate fraud, for example, let's say you're living in your house and someone records a fraudulent deed transferring ownership from you to themselves or probably to a fake name or a fake company. Your house is still affixed to the land, so who do you call? I've seen documents saying that you call the FBI.
FBI is usually the wire side of the fraud. The title side is usually your state attorney, and then you've got to have sheriff or police come out and investigate it, and then it goes to the state attorney's office. Meanwhile, I can only imagine the stress of a homeowner saying, I actually don't own this property right now because the title's been transferred away. And then you have to sue to undo the transaction. So besides just the criminal side of it, you're going to have to bring a quiet title action and sue to show that this was a fraudulent deed and undo the transaction. And then I think the question on that is, well, who would have to pay for that? I think it depends on what kind of insurance you have on your property. I don't know if hazard and casualty insurance covers something like that, but I wouldn't think so. But from a legal side, my attorney's bills could be $500 to $7,500, even maybe more depending on how many parties are involved, to undo that deed.
So surprisingly, it is the responsibility of the true and rightful owner to prove fraud was done to them to restore their rightful ownership to their own property. That is how it currently exists. And I've been talking about this for years now. I've Googled and looked at different things that have happened. And there was a woman in Miami who inherited a property from her parents. By correct rightful title, she was the correct owner of the property, but this criminal saw that there quit claim deeds in chain of title, went back, recorded a fraudulent deed transferring ownership from her deceased parents to this company. The company then sold the property to an unsuspecting third party who thought that they were legitimately purchasing the property and evicted this woman from her family home that she had lived in with her parents. She became homeless for 6 months because of that. And ultimately, the state of Florida prosecuted this criminal who actually did it against 7 other properties. And it was the state of Florida that finally recorded a restorative deed, transferring the ownership back from this criminal to the rightful owner. But in the interim, this woman was without her home. She was actually homeless for 6 months of that period. And even if you identify that it is a crime and law enforcement gets involved, as Barbara mentioned, there's still going to be a reckoning process that creates a deed, either erasing that this ever happened or transferring ownership back to you. But the courts are going to have to be involved. And then my understanding, as not an attorney, is that right now it's the homeowner who was defrauded that pays to fix the crime done to them. Just like you have to pay your deductible if someone messes up your car, you still have to pay your deductible. But this is at a much higher level of headache, of money, and all you did was just live in your house and try to pay your mortgage.
Well, let's not even talk about wire fraud.
Yeah.
If the wire instructions come in on a payoff or a payout to your seller, those funds go into an account, but that fraudster is watching that account, and the minute that hits, it's gone. And to potentially get it back is very difficult. And now with AI, email addresses can be changed to really look identical. It used to be look for the A that's now looks like the @ symbol, or the one that was an L, and you could really look at these things with a microscope. That's not possible anymore. Now with AI, and I was just speaking with another attorney on Tuesday, they had a wire fraud situation, and the email address was identical. There was nothing changed. And they are out the money. It went to the fraudster's account, and they immediately wired it overseas, and there's no way to get that wire back.
The surprise there is what could be financially detrimental to you and your family may not rise to the level that the authorities put it on the top of their priority list. Because depending on what is going on or how many cases that they have, it's not to say that they're not doing their jobs or that they don't care, but there's an order of how things are done. And whereas if you are out $150,000 and that is a big deal, that threshold, that amount of money is not necessarily considered a huge top priority for prosecution or investigation.
Wow.
And in the meantime, you don't have your money or your house.
All this fraud you have seen and experienced.
Yeah.
What's the one hard lesson you've learned about real estate fraud that you would go back and tell your younger self?
I think there are two lessons. One, if your gut says, hey, there's something wrong here. If your gut says it, follow it. And I think the second comment I would make to my younger self is, if it looks to be what's the phrase? I'm sorry.
Too good to be true.
Thank you. Too good to be true. If it looks too good to be true, then it probably is. And to really, dive deep into what the issue is. Again, like Jenny said, you get that listing for waterfront property for, $300,000-$400,000 under market value. That's probably too good to be true. And you need to look at, where's the seller living? They're in Canada. Okay, that's a red flag. Is it a vacant property? So I think the lesson to my younger self would be, follow your gut. Mm-hmm. And if it's too good to be true, find out really what's behind it.
I would say trust yourself, because certainly along the process when Leslie from our team was digging in on all of these deeds and following the paper trail, I'm sure there was a pressure from potentially the investor saying, but these are a good deal, like, let's get this closed. We're always, if we're under contract, we're working towards the closing date that's on the contract. We're meeting the obligations of the terms of the contract. And most of the time players involved are like, we need to get this closed on time. We need to follow the terms of the contract, which is all true. But when your instincts are telling you that something is wrong and taking that extra time, whether people say, oh, it's fine, no, don't worry about it. Michael Bogstead said, don't worry, no one's going to come looking for these properties anyway. That's a red flag. So it's to trust yourself. When you know that something is off and you need extra time, take the time and make sure that it's right. Because again, if you thought something, but then it goes through and these criminals are getting more, they're getting more creative, they're going after different things, they are using new technology. And so even the best, most seasoned person can still get caught up. Like, we get emails from our underwriters all the time. I'm sure Barbara's team does same, saying, this one closed and now this name, this corporation is blacklisted. This closed and this happened. This closed and this happened. Every single day we get new alerts. So there are seasoned professionals and reputable title agencies out there that have been bamboozled. And that's not necessarily on them. They may have been the target of the first time that this happened.
Like you said, the fraudsters are getting more creative.
They are.
We talked about SunBiz schemes and the usage of AI. What emerging trends in real estate fraud do you predict realtors should watch closely over the next year?
AI.
I wish I had a crystal ball. I joke and say, if these fraudsters went and got a real job.
Right. If you use your powers for good instead of evil.
Who would have thought 20 years ago when we said, okay, there are fraudulent cashier's checks out there, so let's go to wires, that now 20 years later, we're talking about all the wire fraud out there and going, hey, maybe we should go back to cashier's checks. Well, no, we're not going to go back to cashier's checks. But I wish, I mean, it's an excellent question, but I wish I could use my crystal ball, which is presently broken, and predict what the future holds. I really can't. I mean,
I don't know.
Do you have a crystal ball that I don't know of? I just think with AI, I mean, as I said before, 16.6 billion in cyber fraud, and it only grows every year.
And for the ones that didn't get reported because it didn't go to the threshold of someone actually losing money, how much more is that? I've tried to track down the exact stat of title fraud, and right now all real estate fraud is reported together. So like if you look at an FBI report, it'll just give you real estate fraud is a piece of the pie of all financial crimes, but it really doesn't break that down into title fraud, wire fraud, mortgage fraud. So we still don't necessarily have an accurate landscape of just how big this problem is. But I'm going to go back to something that I'm passionate about, which is our advocacy, which is our realtor party, which is our efforts of our local association to go to Tallahassee, to meet with our lawmakers when they're here at home in our communities, and making them aware of how big a problem this is in our community and the ways that it's affecting our clients, their constituents. And so these are the things that the criminals are always going to come up with new ways to crime, but helping our lawmakers catch up or potentially get ahead of it, and bringing together the advocacy of title, realtors, mortgage together, and enjoining these lawmakers. And how do we have transparency, but a level of protection? How do we have accuracy in record keeping, ability to create electronic records without allowing there to be such an open portal for fraud? Because if we make it too difficult for them to come for us, they'll go for someone else. And so these are the ways that maybe we can't figure out all of the criminal ingenuity out there, but we can make ourselves the higher hanging, not the lower hanging fruit, the higher hanging fruit, so that they move on to something else or someone else. And maybe all we can do is start here in Florida and protect Floridians. And we're not the fraud shine state. We're protecting Floridians because our lawmakers have this as a priority, but that's definitely a way to start. And so realtors that are watching this, if you don't know anything about RPAC, if you've never looked at what the advocacy is that our local association is doing, when you stop watching this, because you're going to watch it till the end, then I want you to go to our website and check out what they do. Because I didn't even know to the depths of all the things that we do and the measures that we pay attention to and the conversations that we have with our elected officials. We do a lot, because we can't expect our elected officials to know everything about everything, all of the bills that they're voting on. So that's why advocacy is so important. And that's truly a way that you as a realtor can make a greater impact in the community by getting involved in the advocacy efforts. Because when we go to Tallahassee as Florida Realtors, when we go to Tallahassee as STAR, and we have a huge group of all of our agents, they're listening to us. I've sat in those meetings, and they're taking it seriously what we're telling them about the things that are affecting our industry here at home.
The Realtor Party is definitely an actionable takeaway for everyone listening today.
And I'm not saying that you have to donate money, although everyone would be happy if I did say that, but ultimately, you can get involved. Go to a meeting, find out who your elected official is for your community. I'm sure we have a key contact for that person in our association who's a fellow realtor. Learn about what they do as a step number one. And then if it's something that you're passionate about, it's, well, as a member of this association, what is the value for me? This is a value where you can be passionate not just about your own business, but then everyone in your community. And then that's something you can talk about that you're doing in your community. As I'm a realtor, but I am also an advocate for you in Tallahassee. I'm also an advocate for you with our elected officials, where maybe you as an independent homeowner don't have the time to do that. I'm doing that for you. I'm a trusted source of information. I'm advocating and getting the message out about protecting your homeownership rights, protecting your property title.
If realtors could take away one actionable step today to protect their clients and themselves, what should that be?
Stay educated. Definitely stay educated. Read the articles that come out from STAR, from the state level.
Florida Realtors Magazine is excellent.
So I say one takeaway is, if you know the schemes that are going out there through education, you've learned about them, you are going to be better protecting yourself in your day and be better at protecting the transaction, the clients. So that would be my biggest takeaway, is just great job on watching this show, watching this podcast. Great job, Quan, on putting this topic together. This is a great start to learning about the schemes, the takeaways, the red flags, but continue that education. Make it part of your, whether it's a weekly or monthly or even a daily routine, is to just stay up on the different schemes out there, so you protect yourself. You're going to help protect title companies like us, and you're going to protect either your seller or your buyer in the transaction.
Okay, here's my one thing, and it's going to be a 1+1. So do as Barbara said, remain educated. And then my one is, once you educate yourself, broadcast that. You thought, what am I going to post on social media today about my business? Well, you learned a bunch of things today, so now you got a bunch of topics that you can cover as to things that your clients need to know, things that your community needs to know. You can help to protect your community by talking about these things, posting it on social media. And I'm going to add to that, please get registered for Property Fraud Alert. It is a free service. It is offered by the county. The greater Tampa Bay area participates in this free service that you can register the address, you can register your name and or the name of your LLC if you own property in the name of a company, as we mentioned, with Sunbiz being a target. You can register your name, you can register your company name, and I encourage you to sign up for text alerts, because emails get lost. But if you get that text alert that says something has been recorded in the county record against your name, you can immediately go look that up, see if it's real. If it's not, contact an attorney like Brown and Kimpton and get way ahead of this, because no one cares about the piece of paper stealing title to your house. What they care about is what they can do with it next. The crime is what happens next. So finding out about that as soon as possible allows you to potentially walk it back before they do the next level of fraud. So property fraud alert, whatever county you have property in, Google it. It is free. I don't get anything for this endorsement, but I am on a crusade to get as many people who hear my voice registered right now today. And what better way to reach out to your past clients than to help them protect the title of their home? So that was like 5 things that I just gave you for today.
You did. You gave
As
a lot.
homework assignments. And now I need you to report back to me that you did them.
Yes.
Little did you know you were going to get homework out of this,
Right.
too.
That, yes.
Getting some homework. Well, so we're going to take another break at this moment, and we'll be back at the Fabre Framework Studio. Welcome to the hot seat. This is when we turn the heat up, and our panelists have just 2 minutes to pitch their services and show you exactly how they can support your business. From helping you navigate complex transactions to offering solutions that save time and protect your clients. This is your chance to hear firsthand what they bring to the table. And first up, let's turn up the flames with Barbara Brown.
Thank you. One, I want to say thank you so much for having me on. This is just delightful and insightful. I mean, from everything what I know already, but also learning from Jenny and the conversation. So my name is Barbara Brown. I am with Brown and Kimpton, PA. We are a full-service law firm and title company. We have offices in St. Petersburg, Clearwater, and the West Chase area of Tampa, but we do service the entire state of Florida. I have been licensed as an attorney since 1998. I started when I was 12 years old. So it doesn't say my age, my range of our attorneys. We have multiple attorneys at the different offices. Attorney Bill Kimpton has been licensed in the state of Florida for over 50 years, has extensive background in land use, commercial development, commercial contracts, new build. Colton Crimes is one of our other attorneys. He does most of our litigation work, foreclosure defense, but also private money foreclosures. We do seller's failure to disclose, escrow disputes, anything involving real estate. And then I also do probates and estate planning. So if you can look at it, we can usually handle the litigation regarding it or transfers of it. We were talking about quitclaim deeds earlier. So we're very knowledgeable in all those respects as to not only title, but also real estate law and real estate transactions, residential and commercial.
Perfect. Thank you, Barbara. Jenny, you're up.
Okay, I have to follow Barbara. So again, I also want to say thank you for having us and hosting this topic, because I am a passionate consumer advocate when it comes to increasing awareness around how you protect yourself from title theft. And it's always a pleasure to have an attorney sitting next to me, because I always preface what I'm saying. And if you're a realtor and not an attorney, you should as well. I am not an attorney. However, it is my understanding. But if you wish to speak to an attorney, I can make that happen for you. But at Insured Title Agency, we have been here in the Tampa Bay market since 2006. And some of the things that we do for you is try to innovate in our practices as a title company. So what can I do that will help elevate your real estate practice? I offer training and education. And if you were listening earlier, I gave you homework assignments. So now while I'm in the hot seat, I'm going to say, I am not that teacher that gave you that homework and won't help you to complete it. So for everything that I told you to do, if you don't know where to start here. Give me a call. I can help you make a social media post branded to you that talks about how to get signed up for Property Fraud Alert in every county that we serve with your beautiful face on it. So I can do that. We do the title work for you at listing. So you give us that listing agreement or simply the address. We're going to do all the title work, and I'm going to make you a beautiful binder. It's going to, again, have your amazing picture on the front of it. That is for you to have on the kitchen counter for your open houses, for your buyers' needs. And so we're really looking at ways that what can we deliver to you that will help elevate the services that you offer to your clients, will make your transactions go smoother and get you to the closing table faster with less headaches and hassles. So hit us up on all the socials at Insured Title Agency. I'm constantly posting content about what's going on in the news, different fraud topics. That is shareable content. So if you're not sure what to post on your socials that day, just go to our page and share. And you can be keeping your community up to date on how to get protected, and then they will look at you as the knowledgeable source on what's going on in this community. So Insured Title Agency, at Insured Title on all the socials. Jenny Restrepo, happy to help you stay protected, broadcast to your clients, and become that knowledgeable resource.
Whew, man. Well, that's a wrap on this episode of Hot
That
Topics.
was so hot. It was electrifying. We delivered on what we said we were going to do at the beginning.
You did. I just want to say a huge thank you to our powerhouse panelists for dropping serious knowledge and arming us, me included, with tools to help fight real estate fraud head on.
If we do it together, all 26,000 of us, we can at least vouch that Tampa Bay will be protected from fraud.
Yes.
Absolutely.
If you found value in today's episode, and we know you did, we know you definitely took something actionable away from listening, make sure you subscribe, download, and turn notifications so you never miss a beat. We'll have more expert guests, real talking, game-changing tips are on the way. And until next time, stay sharp, stay protected, and keep it hot in real estate.
Hot, hot, hot.
It's getting hot in here.